This is words really can't describe it. Our family they migrated to the Delta from China, and their goal was to get their children an education and have them move on. And America was where their dream could be accomplished. And so education was everything to them. And so when the goal was to get them educated, work in the store, move on, and then raise a family. And his dream was to work in the nation's capital. And he got his degree here, and got on with the federal government and the missile program, the logistics program, and he finally ended up in the 80s, right before he passed away, in Washington, D.C. So his dream was accomplished. He accomplished the dream of my grandparents, and come back here with this and with tennis and everything, because that was one of his passions in his free time, was to play tennis. And it was, the whole thing is full circle. I mean, now his life, I feel like his life is the goal of my grandparents and him has been achieved. And this is just, I don't really have words. I'm really so honored to accept this on behalf of the family, because this is just fantastic. When I was young, my generation, children were raised different, and you just didn't, it was more, you speak when, and answer when you're spoken to and all that. But when he'd come back here to visit, from when we'd moved away, we'd come back here and visit, he was always really happy, because he'd come back and see some of his friends he grew up with. And we'd go down Sunflower Road towards visiting some people up in Pace and Rosedale. We'd make that turn from Marigold onto the Sunflower, and we'd pass over the railroad tracks in town, and we'd get to Delta State. And things just sort of come back to you later. You just don't understand it at the time, but then later you realize that he'd always slow the car down when we'd get through here. And I'd always look over to the right, and I'd see the Walter Sillars Auditorium. That's when I was 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. That's the only thing I remember, come through, Walter Sillars. But he'd slow the car down and say, "This is where I went to school." And then we'd, move on. But it must have meant a lot to him, because he always slowed the car down just a little bit when we came through Delta State. I'm the only person that didn't play tennis in my family. My mother played, my sister played, my dad played, but I'm the only one that made tennis as a career. I build and I manage the maintenance end of a tennis facility at a country club. So he must have passed on in the wide world things of genes and everything. I must have got the itch somewhere. So it just doesn't happen that you just make a career out of tennis. And I did, and I sort of fell into it. And it's been a great career for me, and I wish I could have learned the sport, but some circumstances where you take a fork in the road, you go this way, you go that way, 2 more days, I would have been probably a tennis player. But since it didn't, I ended up working for tennis for my career. But tennis was a great release for him, because he had some real pressures in his job, and tennis was always a release for him, and he always enjoyed playing, and he'd have his little group of friends he played with, and when he finished, he was always a little more relaxed. And tennis was just really important. I think in Delta State really allowed him to do a lot of things, and it was what a great thing. And Delta State's just been great for him. And when you look back on things, it was just fantastic how things turned out. This is my father's athletic letter he earned here at Delta State. I guess back then you got an M, and there was no DSU back then, or DSC. It was Mississippi, I guess Mississippi Teachers College in the Delta, or something like that. But this was his letter, and he got it, and he was inducted into the M Club when you won one of these letters, and so really prized possession of our family. That and we are going to. It is going to be on display in the Mississippi Delta Chinese Heritage Museum here at the CAPS building. Hope I did okay.
You were great.